Hello everybody, sorry about that, something happened and it dropped off, but here we are. Today I want to tell you about 3 things that you must do in your writing, your IELTS writing. Whether you're doing academic or general training, the same 3 things you must do in order to prepare well for the exam and also be successful in the writing part of your exam. So if you are struggling with your writing or finding the writing challenging, then please watch the rest of this live so that you can discover whether you're doing these 3 things. So I want to start today by telling you a little story. And this is a story about a new student of mine that I'm working with. And we are working on writing and a little bit of speaking as well, but mostly on the writing. And yesterday, which was our 3rd lesson, I was asking about how long it took him to do the writing. And he sort of grinned and said it took him 2 hours to do the task 1. And I was a little surprised because he's taken the exam, I think 3 times already. And so I was curious to find out why it took so long. Anyway, to cut a long story short, it transpired that in the 3 previous exams that he'd taken, he hadn't practiced doing any task 1 writing. So I was quite surprised that somebody would go into an exam and not actually practice the writing before going into the exam. But he told me that a lot of his friends had done this. They just assumed that they could tackle the writing quite easily. And that to me was quite an eye-opener. And so I got to thinking that maybe there are lots of students who are going into the exam and not actually doing much writing before they go into the exam. And clearly, if you are looking to get a high band, so this student, as most of my students, is looking to get a 7 at least. If you're looking to get that kind of level in your writing, then it really, I don't know why you would go into an exam without ever having practiced. But that seems to be the case for a lot of students. And writing a task 1 and taking 2 hours is not a problem. In fact, sometimes it's a good thing to do so that you can really get to the heart of what a task 1 or a task 2 band 7 or 8 writing really looks like and really feels like to write. So, having told you that story, I want to tell you now 3 things that if you are in the same position as this student of mine, and I would assume you are not doing it. And he certainly isn't or wasn't. He is now because I'm showing him what to do, guiding him how to do everything, marking his work in great detail, and then we're meeting online to go through that work. I answer any questions, and that's how I do my writing practice. The first thing that's really important is that your writing must be done actively. Now, what that means is you cannot get IELTS writing by osmosis. You cannot absorb it. You cannot get it by watching YouTube. The same is true of speaking. Because these are active things, you have to physically do them. You have to open your mouth and say the words and hope that they come out in a coherent way. You have to do the same with the writing. You have to physically put those words on the paper. And not only that, but there are certain parameters that are set in the band descriptors that you have to fulfill. If you don't have complex sentences, there is no way you can get 7. If you don't have a good joined up piece with lots of coherence throughout the paragraphs and also throughout the sentences, the relationship between sentences, you cannot get band 7. If you don't have a wide range of vocabulary, you cannot get band 7. It doesn't matter how fantastic your ideas are, if you don't have the mechanics, if you make lots of vocabulary mistakes, lots of spelling errors, lots of punctuation errors, lots of grammar errors, you cannot get band 7. It's as simple as that. This writing has to be active. You can't do it virtually by looking at your friend's band 7 and say, oh, I'll write something like that. So that's the first thing. You have to be active, you have to write. The second thing is that this is an internal process. It's not an external process. Now that sounds a little counterintuitive, but what I mean is that your writing comes from inside you. It comes from your ideas. It comes from your experience. And most importantly, it comes from your knowledge of the English language. It is something that is inside you, in your brain. It is not something that you can look at on YouTube or you can look at on the internet or look at even in a book, in an IELTS book, and say, oh yeah, I'm going to copy that. Because it's just not possible. It's really not possible. The only possible way you can do it like that is to memorize. And then if you memorize the essay, number one, the examiner's going to spot it a mile off. I've been an examiner. I know this. You can see when somebody's copied something and memorized it. And secondly, whatever you memorize may not exactly fit the question, because the question that you get, even though the topic might be the same, the actual wording of the question might be slightly different. So it has to be active. It has to be an internal process that comes from you, inside you. Things that you've read, things that you've experienced, ideas that you have, things that you've seen on television or on the internet. All of these things inform what you write in your IELTS tasks. And the third thing that it is a physical activity. You actually have to put a pen in your hand or put a keyboard under your fingers, and you have to physically do it. It's an interaction between all that internal stuff in your brain, from your experience, maybe even in your heart. And that then has to be physically transposed onto a piece of paper or onto an internet screen. And through this process, you are bringing alive your ideas through the language that you have. Now, that's production. And if you don't produce and do those three things, the activity, the internal processing, and the actual writing or typing of your ideas onto paper, then I cannot see how you can go into the exam comfortably and do the writing. The second part of this process is how good is the language that you're putting on paper. And the only way you can know that is, I believe, to get it checked by somebody who can look at what you've done and say, yeah, you'll get band 7, or no, you need to do this, that, and the other in order for you to get close to band 7. And that's where a teacher like me, especially, will come into your process, because we know how to develop your writing, how to help you to get all that down on paper in the very best language possible. And we know that because, number one, in my case, I'm a native speaker, so I know English inside out. Number two, I'm a trained teacher, so I know how to help people to develop language. And number three, I have a lot of experience of IELTS, both from a teaching point of view and an examining point of view. So I know when I see your writing, what's wrong, what you haven't put in, what you've put in that doesn't need to be there, how you can develop it. And so that's why when I go back to the story of my student, I am quite blown away by the fact that some students will go into the exam completely blind. Why would you do that? it seems to me a waste of money, a waste of time, a waste of an opportunity. So if you are not actively writing, putting words down on a page, if you are not taking into account the fact that this process comes from inside you, your ideas, your experience, and if you are not physically getting that looked at, if you are not asking people for help with that, then I think your chances of getting a high band are quite slim. And I don't want you to be in that position. So please, please, please remember, this is an active, physical, internal process. And make sure that in your IELTS, you are doing everything that you need to do to get the best score possible. And if you want me to help you do that, then I'm very happy to talk to you, look at what's going on in your writing or in any aspect of IELTS actually, and show you the way forward. All you need to do is send me a message or put a note in the comments and I will reach out to you. I have a brilliant writing course, IELTS Writing Boot Camp, which gives you everything you need to make this physical process happen and help you to get the band you want in your IELTS. Contact me and I'll tell you how it all works. Okay, thank you. I hope that's useful. Please, please, please don't leave it to chance. And I would love to help all of you to get your writing to band 7, 7.5 or 8. I'll see you in the next IELTS Live Thursday. Bye everybody. I don't think that worked at all.